Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. David M. Drucker. Follow him on Twitter, X, David M. Drucker, senior political writer for the Dispatch. David, I think Republicans will pass the continuing resolution in less than an hour or so. Will it get through the Senate where it needs 60 votes? You are quiet, David. There you are. You're okay now. We turned you on. We got you.
Okay. Listen, Hugh, I think if it gets to the Senate, I think one way or the other, it'll get to 60 votes. Senators have even less patience for government shutdowns than House members do, or maybe I should say they don't have patience for them where sometimes the House does. So if the Republicans can get this thing through, and it would basically be a party line vote with no votes to spare, I think you'll see enough Democrats jump on board with it because they don't like to shut down the government. Senate Republicans don't like to shut down the government. So I think that's one thing that'll get out of the way.
Now, the breaking news is that Premier Ford up in Toronto is going to turn out the lights in New York. He backed off. They've announced they're not going to do that. That, in fact, they're going to renegotiate the USMCA. Trump win, right?
Well, we will see. The way Ford, I watched Premier Ford's press conference, and the way he described it was that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick called him. He described it as an olive branch and said he would negotiate. He didn't make any predictions about how the negotiations would go, but he said when someone offers you an olive branch, the right thing to do is to take it. I coincidentally was on the phone with political operatives up in Canada today, and what they were explaining to me was that they were completely gobsmacked as to why President Trump was coming after among the closest U.S. allies on the planet and one of our biggest, if not the biggest, trading partner that we have. And they're just trying to figure out what to do about it. But the thing that they were explaining to me was they have voters too, and they're not going to roll over and play dead because Trump threatens them. So it'll be interesting to see where all of this ends up if we ever do get to a conclusion.
Well, the answer to them is let our milk come in. All right? I mean, it's really dairy products is what they don't. They're protectionists when it comes to dairy. They love to send us lumber. We like to buy their lumber. They love to send us oil. We like to buy their oil. We like their people to move here. My in-laws are all Canadian Americans now. My daughter-in-law is a Canadian American. They are our closest friends, physically and emotionally. They're basically fellow countrymen. But they run a rigged game when they want to. And Donald Trump's calling them on it.
Well, that's certainly one way to look at it. The way they look at it is that that the North American Free Trade Agreement was renegotiated at Trump's behest, the USMCA, United States, Mexico, Canada Trade Agreement, and that the president has, been either going outside of that agreement, breaking it, or threatening to break it. All of these things are always up for negotiation. Sometimes with certain negotiating partners, the stick works. Sometimes with certain negotiating partners, the carrot or the honey works. And I think it's just a matter of trying to decide, do you want to successfully renegotiate trade terms? And then what's the best way to get there?
The one thing I don't know, and it has not come up, the part of the USMCA renegotiation in Trump 1 was Keystone. And Keystone was going to pump a lot of oil in. There are going to be a lot of jobs in America. It was going to be a great thing. Biden comes in, he shuts it down. Canada says, enough of that. We're not going to play this game. They shut it down too. So it's not the same deal that they, it's fundamental material change in terms when the oil's not coming in through Keystone. Any buzz about that at all?
It's funny. I was talking to somebody up in Alberta, but the concern was that the oil exports generally could get caught up into this. And of course, the U.S. Of our imports, we import more oil from Canada than anywhere else in the world. And we have refineries in the upper Midwest that are only built to refine Canadian crude. They can't refine American crude or Mexican crude. So this is really a huge deal in terms of what happens here. I think the other thing that we need to mention here, Hugh, is it may seem like a funny joke to us where Trump's just doing his thing about Canada becoming the 51st state. They're really taking it personally. And it is probably, if the Liberal Party holds on to the,
Let me throw a flag.
Prime Minister's
Let me throw a
office.
flag. This is Liberal Party. There's my flag. 15 yards for spouting Liberal Party propaganda. Pierre Poilievre's 9 points ahead. They're trying to make this an issue. It ain't going to work.
They were dead and buried
Well,
they
they
now
Justin
have a
Trudeau,
chance.
who was dead and buried.
Well, they now listen, Hugh. All I'm going to tell you is because you asked me, and I've been talking to them, and it's something that they take extremely personally, and they've taken it personal enough that it's given the Liberal Party a chance to hold on in what we assume will be upcoming elections. It doesn't mean they will, but they had zero chance before all of this, and it's
And
something
I
that
get it, David. I
even
know what they're telling you.
the conservatives in Canada take personally.
I watched the Pierre's ad where he had to say, "I'll be tough on Mr. Trump," but I know that all they've done is try and switch the attention away from Justin Trudeau, the fabulously failed faker, to Donald Trump, who's fabulously successful president, and make him the issue and not Trudeau. But you know, the Canadians are pretty smart people. If they pull that ticket for the socialists again and the liberals, as opposed to Pierre, they're out of their minds. They'll end up with more. And they don't even pull their weight on the NORAD anymore. They are really becoming like the cousin who calls up and asks for cash all the time.
That may be true, and I'm not arguing any of these points with you, but I'm telling you, I've covered voters. Emotion plays a huge role in how people vote. Pride plays a huge role in how people vote, and this is a very big deal in Canada. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I hear you, and keep me posted on what the Canadians are up to. I liked Rocky and Bullwinkle. I liked the Mounties. I always have. I don't watch that horrific show that my friend Brian Baird does about the Canadian Mountie, Call of the Heart. Have you heard of that? That's the worst show on TV.
No, I don't watch it. Listen, we have the best TV. All of their people come here to produce better TV. So, you know.
Well, Brian's making bank on it, so somebody's watching it. But I'll tell you, it's not great. Thank you so much, David Drucker.